Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to have a little chat about something that's been on my mind the last couple of months, and that is the idea of deck collections. So I thought as we talk about this topic, it would be appropriate to flip through one of the newest decks in my collection, which is the Ocean Dreams Mystic Oracle, an independent deck by Danielle Noel. Now, what prompted this whole idea for this video was that I was recently did a video for my members where I showed the decks that I've purchased and the decks that's come into my collection every month. And I was talking about this deck in particular and how I am a fan of Danielle Noel's decks and I collect her decks. So I have the Star Child Tarot, I have the Moon Child Tarot. I also currently have the two decks by Rebecca Campbell, but that feature Danielle Noel's artwork. So I thought since this was the deck that kind of prompted that discussion for me, this is the deck that we would take a flip through as I talk about this whole idea of collecting. And I put this on this side and it's going to be in my way, so let's move it over here. So here's the thing, and where I started with in this whole kind of rant as I was talking with my members about this, is that this deck I mentioned is a newer deck in my collection, and to me, the word collection is not a dirty word. I know it's kind of taken on this kind of four-letter word aspect, this dirty word aspect over the last few months in the community. While I respect everybody using the language that feels the best for them and that resonates most deeply with them, if you want to call it a collection or a library or some other kind of combination thereof, I think that's fantastic and really to each their own. But I did also want to kind of add a little bit of a different perspective to the idea of a collection and how I approach it, in mine in particular, and what that word means to me. So one of the things I said in my member video was that for me, the idea of a collection doesn't mean it's things that I sit on a shelf and I never look at. If I were to actually look at the things in my life that I could consider to be part of a collection, my collection of books, probably more appropriately called a library, gets way less use than the decks in my collection. I have books sitting on my shelf that I have not touched in months or years. Some of them are books that I read and they meant a lot to me, so I hang on to them. Others are part of a collection of work by a particular author. So I look at my decks very much in the same way, as in these are things that I use, right? And things that I also collect, because I do keep the tarot decks that I use. I don't buy them, use them once, and then, rehome them or throw them away or resell them or anything like that. If a deck doesn't work for me, then perhaps I will move it on. I don't keep things that don't work for me or resonate with me, but I also don't use it once and then toss it aside. Some decks I only use once a year, but I use them for very specific things and for very specific work, and so that makes it a meaningful part of my practice and of my collection. So the word collection to me means something I think a little bit different than maybe what it means to other people, so I just kind of wanted to come on and share that, and I thought we'll flip through this deck as I do. The word collection for me doesn't mean a body of things that I just sit on the shelf and never use. They're very much things that I incorporate into my everyday life, into my personal practice, into my tarot work, my spiritual work, my personal growth work, particularly when we're talking about tarot or oracle cards in this sense. But to call it a collection to me means something so much more. To me, the word library means something that I use, right? I use it when I need it and I put it away and I really don't think about it a lot when I don't. Kind of like if I go to a library, there's all those books that I can have access to that I can check out and use and then bring back and put back on the shelf and I won't think about it again, right? To me, that's kind of the connotation of what library has. And I would consider my books more of a library because they're things that I read, use, put back on the shelf and don't think about again until I perhaps maybe need it at some point or never actually touch it again. It's just something that I enjoyed and I want to keep. So that's kind of like a memory at that point. My decks are a different story. My decks are a collection. And to me, the word collection means treasured things. These are treasured tools in my possession. There are things that I actively use on a daily basis, some more than others, of course. But there are things that I have personal attachment to. For something to be in a collection in my home means that it has personal significance to me. It means that it's something that's treasured, something that's special, something that means something to me on a personal level. And each of these decks that I own all have varying degrees of meaning for me. Some of them mean more than others. Some of them I'm more personally connected to than others. Some of them I use more than others, and I tend to group my decks up in my home, in my space here, by their use. Sitting on my desk is the decks I'm working with currently. Sitting on a little shelf next to my desk is my most used decks. Those are my favorite decks. And then around my office, I have bins of decks that are divided up seasonally. So I have a winter basket, a summer basket, a spring basket, and a fall basket. And then I also have collections of decks that are by the same creator. So I have certain creators that I collect their decks, not only because I enjoy their decks, I enjoy their perspective on the tarot or oracle, whatever it is that we're talking about, but also because I want to support that creator. So I buy their decks, I collect their decks as a way to support their work. So again, it's not just something that I necessarily buy and stick on a shelf and now it's like, a collection of things that I never interact with. These are things that are important to me, things that are treasured, things that matter in my everyday life and make a difference in my everyday life. So I guess that's kind of just what I wanted to share. This will probably be a quick little video because I don't really have much to expand upon beyond that. Oh, side note, totally a squirrel moment here. You might notice that I have a new table. So I've got a new reading table, which means that I also have a new filming space. So my channel is going to be getting a little bit of a makeover. I'm really excited about it because I feel like after about 3 years, I think that I've been on YouTube now, I feel like I'm ready for a change and I'm ready for something new. So anyway, I thought I'd just share that real quick too while I was thinking about it. But let's get back to what we were talking about. So I just kind of wanted to have a quick chat about that, to talk about the idea and the word collection, maybe from a little bit different perspective, maybe just shine a little bit of a different light on it. As in, it's not just a pile of things that I own. These are treasured pieces of my practice. And as such, they come together to create a collection that reflects my personal tarot practice on the whole. So I have a collection of decks on the whole, and I have collections of decks by individual creators who I want to continue to support and to showcase on my channel and to share the work that they do. And so those are the decks that I continue to bring into my collection. I think it's really important for each of us to use the language that feels resonant for us. And for me, collection is not a dirty word. Collection is the word that I choose to use to refer to my assortment of decks that I own and what I use them for. When it comes to my books, to me, that is very much more a library than a collection, because my books honestly don't get as much use or have as much sentimental or purposeful value in my life as my tarot decks do, my tarot and oracle decks. And so I will be continuing to use the word collection because to me, that signifies something that's just more than things I own. They are treasured parts of my personal practice. So thank you so much for indulging me in this little discussion about the word collection and how I use it in my own personal practice and in my own vocabulary and what it means to me. So thank you so much for joining me, my friends, and I look forward to sharing with you again soon.